Hey everyone, welcome back to the Jedok Geom series, where we explore the Admiral's sword, a Korean Joseon Dynasty sword form. Now if you haven't seen our previous videos, check them out above. So today we'll be talking about the Kyukjukse, which is the offensive posture or the attack posture. Now the Kyukjukse has 5 variants, and the 2 that we'll be talking today are the Hyangjoa Kyukjukse and the Hyangwoo Kyukjukse, which are the offensive posture to the left and the offensive posture to the right respectively. Now the other 3 are the spinning Hyangjoa and the spinning Hyangwoo Kyukjukse, which are the spinning variants of those, and also the Hyangwoo Kyukjukse, which is the offensive posture to the rear, and we'll cover those in another video later on. So with regards to the Hyangjoa Kyukjukse and the Hyangwoo Kyukjukse, then they're basically your basic attack. And how to know whether it's the left offensive posture or the right offensive posture? It's really simple. If your left foot is in front, it is the left offensive posture. And if your right foot is in front, then it's the right offensive posture. And that's it. So now I'd like to bring you to a concept that I like to call the 7 lines of attack. And from any basic attack, then they follow these 7 lines. And really from any attack, then sword path follows one of these 7 lines to some degree. And so the 7 lines of attack are the vertical downwards cut, the downwards cut to the left, the downwards cut to the right, the horizontal cut to the left, the horizontal cut to the right, the rising cut to the left, and the rising cut to the right. And from any posture, then one of these 7 lines is adopted and used for the cut. So today we'll be talking about the Hyangwoo Kyukjukse, which is the offensive posture to the right. So traditionally this is done in right long stance, and the left side, the offensive posture to the left, is just a mirror version of that. So we'll just talk using the right long stance, and you can adopt everything to the left by putting it in mirror image. So in the Jedok Geom Turo, then only 3 of the 7 lines are used. And those 3 are the vertical downwards cut, the downwards cut to the left, and the rising cut to the left. Now it begs the question, of all 7 lines, why are only 3 used? And I think we can find the answer by eliminating some that shouldn't be used. So the first one we can eliminate is the downwards cut to the right. So when you're in right long stance and you try and do a downwards cut to the right, it's very hard to get a lot of power out of it, because all of the body mechanics, when you engage the core and you try to engage the hips, they're all turning against your footwork. And it doesn't mean that this cut shouldn't be used, but it means it's not an optimum position to use this cut from. So if you're going to use a downwards cut to the right, you should probably just step through with the left foot so that you're in left long stance and you can get power, core engagement and hip turn to power this cut very effectively. So now we get to the horizontal cuts. So the horizontal cuts are generally practiced in a front-facing horse stance, because that way then you can turn the hips quite effectively to power the horizontal cuts. And we actually see this in other forms where we spin using those horizontal cuts from a front-facing horse stance and then spin through. But let's say that you're in either right long stance or a horse stance with the right foot in front. Then the form of the horizontal cut actually becomes very, very similar to the form of a rising cut. It's basically just a rising cut but less rising and a little bit flatter. So we can probably just group them in with the rising cuts because the form doesn't change very much. All of the body mechanics are essentially the same. So those are the ones that we can eliminate. We get to the rising cuts. Why is only one of the rising cuts shown here? And I think it begs the question, should you use an outside body rising cut, that is a rising cut to the left, or a cross body rising cut, that is a rising cut to the right? And in which situations should you use which one? And if we think about it in terms of stepping, if you want to step in alternate steps, then if you're just doing rising cuts, then either works. Rising cut into rising cut into rising cut. Both sides work. You can either do that as a cross body rising cut and you can see it works, or you can do it as an outside body rising cut and it still works. But now let's throw some downwards cuts into the mix. If you want to do 1 cut per step, then on the downwards cut, then the only cut you can really effectively do from that motion is the rising cut from the outside. Because if you try and do the downwards cut and the cross body rising cut, your sword has to go from one side of you, go to the other side, and it's wasted effort, wasted movement. It doesn't mean that this wouldn't be done, but again, it's not the optimum movement. However, let's say that you're not stepping and you are stationary and you do your downwards cut and then the opponent moves in. Suddenly there's an opportunity, but you can't take a step. So then you should use the cross-body rising cut, the rising cut to the right, because you're not taking a step. You can gain a lot of power from this one, and it flows with the downwards cuts. If you do the downwards cut and then there's an opportunity and an opening to the opponent's lower left, then you should take the cut, but there's this awkward moment where there's a pause and then the sword goes to the other side and cuts. Now again, like I said, if the opportunity presents itself, take that opportunity. Don't waste an opportunity to deliver a less optimum strike compared to no strike at all, because a less optimum strike might still do something, whereas no strike at all is just a missed opportunity. Now for the rising cut to the left, the outside body rising cut, if you look at how the Korean form practices it, it's always in right long stance. I personally don't actually like it in right long stance. I find it works better for core engagement and hip rotation in a right horse stance. And I feel like you can just step across and deliver a lot more power, and it's a lot easier to do in my opinion. But other people might find the right long stance easier, and Jedok Geom is the form that works best for you. It's a very practical form. It's not supposed to be about aesthetics or all of that. So find the way that works best for you. If you find it best in long stance, do it in long stance. If you find it works best in horse stance, do it in horse stance. And in terms of stepping from horse stance into long stance for a downwards cut, I find it doesn't really make a difference compared to long stance and long stance. So that's it for today's episode. I hope you liked learning about the Kyukjukse, and I hope that it was entertaining. Now, if you check out down below, then there is a link to my document. And in my document, then I've typed up the form as it's practiced in Korea in a lot more detail than you will find in the English translations of byeolungeom, as well as I've typed up my interpretation of the form. Now, this document is completely free, and if you want to share it with your friends, go ahead, because I typed this up and I want to make it more accessible to the English-speaking community so that more people can learn the form. So that's all for today. With that, I'll see you on the next episode.